Welcome to the show. It's Tuesday. You may have heard some news dropped earlier today in Notre Dame land. Just when it seemed like the freak out level couldn't get any higher, it has dropped just 2 days after Marcus Freeman said he still hadn't decided on who his starting quarterback would be to open the season. Notre Dame made it social media official today. They announced redshirt freshman CJ Carr as the man. But so my question right now to Notre Dame Nation, how you feeling right now? Are you excited? Are you fired up? Are you nervous? Are you relieved? Are you upset? You know, like there were some people backing Kenny Minchie in this whole thing. I think that you and I tried to stay as down the middle as we could, you know, throughout this whole process and let it play out. Joe chiming in the YouTube chat. He says, national championship or bust. Facilitate is feeling great. I don't know if he meant for that to rhyme with his handle or not. Stymie is as giddy as a schoolgirl, he says today. Scott L. Esquire, who is in the chat first on the YouTube side, says, what should I whine about today? I got nothing. I mean, I think that's kind of the general consensus. Glad that Scott could kind of poke fun at himself there. And Tom Friley, what a great time to be a Notre Dame football fan. I'm Sean Stiers, as I do all the talking here. Vince D'Addario is staring at me. What do you think, Vince? What'd you think about this news today?
Well, I didn't know what to expect, to be perfectly honest with you, as far as when the actual announcement was going to come and how, what form it was going to come in, because, we weren't going to talk to Marcus Freeman again until game week. That's still a week away. So I really wasn't anticipating hearing anything until next week, to be perfectly honest with you. So just kind of piggybacking on that, I kind of thought that they might know internally, but I really like you wasn't sure that we would actually find out until the press conference, which is a week from today. Right. We knew that they were going to start Miami prep this week, today specifically, what that was going to look like. And, they probably would have it figured out, to be perfectly honest with you, once they were able to digest Sunday scrimmage and, all of those things. And I figured, and this is what I told Brian actually when he called me when it dropped, I said, I figured Marcus Freeman would announce it, at a press conference type setting so that he'd be able to answer some questions about it. Now, obviously, that is now going to happen next week, and you guys have a week to get your questions together. Since you'll be the one to bite the bullet, I'm sure, to ask those questions. But no, I was surprised at the timing of it. I mean, it worked out well for Irish Breakdown because it was announced at about 12:30, and then they had their 1:00 show this afternoon, so the timing couldn't have been better.
Exactly. For me, I was telling you and Jesse as the text started, you guys always see it first, and then I've got the notifications on my phone and it still didn't come through. I don't know if they actually put it up. Did they put it up on Twitter, or was it Instagram?
I'm not 100% sure. I got the phone call from Brian. He's like, his name's CJ the starter, and I go, shut your mouth. And he's like, is that how you talk to your boss? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess so.
I was putting together one show with the idea that we weren't going to know anything today, and I was starting to put together a second show based on the idea that we would know something today. And here we are. We do know something today. Sean Kelly says, yes, it was on Twitter. So, because I think the screenshot I got was from Instagram or one of there's so many different.
Right.
Sean Kelly also said he thinks that Freeman listened to Jesse. Jesse got a little emotional yesterday.
Did he really?
Who he thought it should be. And
wow.
In that whole.
There are very few things I'm certain about in this world. One of them is Freeman's not listening to Jesse.
No.
He's not listening to me.
Correct.
He's not listening to you.
Correct.
Those are things I'm really sure about.
Correct. On all counts. All counts correct. Sean Kelly also in the YouTube chat says, I feel great, but how do you guys feel? Don't have to answer any more questions daily. I mean, think about this. This is a process that began literally as soon as the national championship game was over last year. Who's it going to be this year? And we went into spring with a 3-man
battle. Somewhat ironic, I guess, that the guy who left, Steve Angeli, was named a starting quarterback before either one of these guys, who are still at Notre Dame. But then Sean also asked, was it worth waiting 2 days to announcement? Did he really see something in one practice that really made the decision clear? That crossed my mind as well. But you did have a live scrimmage at Notre Dame State on Saturday. So if that's part of the evaluation process, I think you have to let it play all the way out. They scheduled a press conference before training camp ever started that they knew was going to take place that day. They knew that a scrimmage was going to take place that day. Maybe you could have said, well, they should have just held the press conference on Monday. Okay, whatever. But I think that ultimately, again, if that was part of the evaluation process, they had to let it play out. And I think that there was a lot of, from their end, a lot of conversations about which way they were going to go on this whole thing. I don't think it was completely unanimous, at least going into the scrimmage anyway, based on, things, that we heard here and there and little birdies and everything else. And I think that there was probably some more discussion about who was the best fit for this job going forward. And they obviously ultimately decided on CJ Carr.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that I do not think it was unanimous. I think that some guys relented, whoever was on one side or the other. And we kind of have an idea of kind of who was not pulling for, but like who thought certain people should be starters and who thought
who was leaning in one direction, who was leaning in another.
I think we have a fairly good idea how that went down. And I think that at the end of the day, Marcus Freeman made the best choice for this football team that he could. And I don't know that a year ago he makes the same decision. I'll just say that. So this was an informed decision. This was a very data-filled decision. I do think that they took a lot out of the scrimmage on Sunday. I do. I really do. Because the videos that we got, from Fighting Irish Media and all of that, showed both guys throwing to number ones, and it showed both guys throwing to twos, So, I mean, they clearly got equal reps in the scrimmage. The defense won the scrimmage by all accounts. And so, I think it was all part of it. I really do. And I think that Marcus Freeman putting these guys into the highest level of, situation that they possibly could be in, that's what this was. It was in the stadium. It was a game-like atmosphere. Everything that you can have in a practice was on the line. Right. And I think they took a lot out of that. I really, really do. So you can't make that decision. If you are putting a lot on that one practice, right, and it's another data point, obviously, but if you're putting a lot on that scrimmage, you can't make that decision 5 minutes after practice gets over. Like, you have to go back and look at it.
Just because literally – here's, just a little peek. Like, the press conference was supposed to start at noon, and the scrimmage was supposed to be over by then. At 11:13 a.m., we got an email saying, hey, press conference is probably going to start closer to 11:45. And I know Brian Driscoll put something up on the Champions Lounge to that effect. So it's like he texted me and he's like, hey, did you see this? And I'm like, no, but I'm at the door now, now that you told me. So, of course, we all get over there. We rush over there, and we sat and waited in the stadium interview room for about 20 minutes or so until they actually got there, and then they actually ended up starting a little after 12 o'clock, ironically. But you can literally because there are windows that look out that room, and you can see where the tunnel is, where the players and the coaches all come off the field, and Freeman and whatever other staff comes to the top of the tunnel. And so like you could see him, he literally walked off the field and into the press conference. So no, you can't expect that they're going to be able to make that kind of decision literally walking straight off the field. They do video every practice, and they break down all the good, all the bad. And Marcus Freeman was talking after the practice about it. It's not just the decisions that you make, as the quarterback. It's also, and again, you find this out on film, and then you go over it, both with with the coaching staff and with the players, it's not just the decisions that you make, it's also in part the ones that you should have made. Like, you did this is what, look here on the film, this is what you should have done. Again, that's all part of the evaluation process. So if they were going to be fair to the process, fair to themselves, fair to the team, fair to the players, the whole thing, they had to let the process run its course all the way to the end, and that's obviously what they ended up doing.
Yeah, I think they did it the right way. I think that Kenny Minchie and CJ Carr made this into an actual legitimate quarterback competition, one that we haven't seen at Notre Dame in a very, very long time. And I give props to both of them for being able to do that. And I want to push back on fans that are saying that, oh, both guys were struggling so much they can't make a decision. I really do think it was the opposite, Sean. I really do think that they were both playing well and they were both pushing each other. And yeah, did they make mistakes? Of course they did. They are going up against one of the best defenses in the country,
And this is the thing. This is like, let me go ahead and find this cut, because I've got a few different cuts that I wanted to play. I do have Mike Denbrock from Sunday's press conferences, because in addition to Marcus Freeman, it was also Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, as well as Chris Ash, the defensive coordinator. And so after the scrimmage, after Marcus Freeman's press conference, here's Mike Denbrock talking about these quarterbacks going up against Notre Dame's defense over the course of training camp.
I think you really have to look at it as a positive, right? I mean, we're blessed that we get that type of competition on a day in and day out basis against a defense that, is complex in their coverage schemes, can lock you down when they decide to play man, can do about anything they need to do from a coverage standpoint. So I think that exposes our guys to understanding the level of competitiveness at the wide receiver position it takes to be really good at what you do. And, we're fortunate to be in that scenario, and I think it helps young guys grow up faster. And, I'm comfortable with where we're headed at wide receiver. We need some more consistency across the board, but I would include the receivers in that.
So there's Mike Denbrock talking about these quarterbacks facing the defense. And I'll tell you this, Vince, and you can tell me what you think. I don't think that CJ Carr or, Kenny Minchie, assuming that Kenny sees the field, but let's, CJ Carr for right now, since he is the starting quarterback, I don't think he's going to face a defense as good as what he just faced for the last 2.5 weeks all season long if they get to the playoffs.
Right.
That's how good this defense is. And when people see this secondary, like we know that some of the thoughts that you had on last year's secondary, these young guys have added so much depth and true depth to the room. These guys are long all over. They are athletically freaky all over. They cover like glue, man. And like, I think that is ultimately what led to maybe this dragging on a little bit longer, because they had to face that secondary and that defense every day. And that was a challenge for any young quarterback. And, again, I think that they're going to come out of this battle tested and ready to go, because I just said it. I don't think they're going to see a better defense until December.
I completely agree with you that it will take until the playoff for that to happen. And it may take a couple rounds into the playoff for that to happen. And, I saw somebody comment somewhere, somehow, today, was that, CJ Carr is now going to get to go up against the scout team, and things are going to look a lot different in practice with him, with CJ.
He can actually build a little confidence, I think,
Exactly right. I mean, look, you don't really do 1v1s, when you get into the regular season and you're preparing for the opposition, things like that. You're going to do some maybe one-on-ones, like literally 1v1, but not team, right? That's going to be scout team, and there's going to be some confidence that gets built up.
Mm-hmm.
And folks, you're going to see a completely different offense for Notre Dame than you saw last year that went to the national championship, by the way. But you're going to see a completely different offense. And you would have, regardless of who the quarterback was going to be. But now everybody can just kind of take a breath and get excited about what this team is actually going to be on August 31st when they take the field down in Miami. It is a relief across the board. I'm glad we don't have to answer questions about it anymore. But more so, I'm glad that the team has a direction and they know exactly what to expect now within their walls, and they can prepare, to the best of their ability for that game one.
Yes, exactly. It's interesting because we talked to the quarterback coach, Gino Guidugli, early in camp, and we asked him, how long could this competition go? And here was Gino Guidugli's answer.
You can go all the way up until you get to the Miami prep if you need it.
Okay.
And I don't think Marcus is in a hurry to make a decision. We want to have these guys have a nice little body of work in fall camp. So, I think you could go all the way through the third block of training camp if you needed to.
Go all the way through the third block of training camp up until Miami prep. And based on what Marcus Freeman told us Sunday, Miami prep starts today. So they literally, we talked about this yesterday. They went up, they had a hard deadline. They went right up to that hard deadline, and they made the call right down to the wire. Today is when they actually, finally announced it.
Yeah, they went right up to the wire. And, I don't think that they really realistically could have gone many more days. And so, again, I would not have been surprised if they waited to announce it to everyone else until, Tuesday when Freeman does his press conference and all of that. But it's 2025. Like, it would have leaked. Like, it would have gotten out there as to who was taking the number one reps. I mean, you've got 115 players or whatever the number is right now. You got all the trainers, you got all the managers, you got all the people that are out of practice. It would have leaked at some point. So, use social media, get it out there, and let this thing kind of die down a little bit. And you know what? If I'm Marcus Freeman, people were like, oh, he looked tired. Well, guess what? Camp is tiring, man. Like, it's all day long. It's
exactly.
It's a tiring thing. And I'm not surprised he looks tired. And now he gets a week where he doesn't have to worry about the quarterback situation, and he can come into the press conference next week kind of, ready and raring to go and answer those questions, as opposed to just getting beat down, kind of is what it felt like the other day.
Well, but, again, he also just walked out off the field after a live scrimmage where they're evaluating not just the court. Like, to me, he just kind of looked like, like if you win a game, he's obviously going to have a little bit different, demeanor. There wasn't an actual W or an L out there. The defense technically won it, but from a team standpoint, there wasn't a win or a loss. To me, he just, kind of looked as, like the same kind of general temperament, I think, as if he had just walked off the field after a game. And when you add on what you're talking about, again, it had been 2.5 weeks, and you're out there for hours, and then you're going through film, and you're having all these different meetings and everything else. That does take a cum effect. And look, there's not much break now, because now it's on to Miami, and you're on to Miami prep now.
Yeah, I think the pressure is off a little bit now. I mean, of course, look, you're the head coach at Notre Dame. There's always going to be pressure, literally, with everything that you do. And he's the head coach of a very, very good football team. But he doesn't have the looming, rain cloud over his head about who the starting quarterback is going to be. And so I do think that that's going to be a little bit of weight off of his shoulders. And now they can just focus on Miami and get to it. You know what I mean?
I think you'll sleep better at all tonight, or is now just, every thought about Miami?
Now there's just new thoughts. Like, there's new worries. Like, he's replaced the old worry with new worries. But I almost guarantee you he will be in much better spirits once they get to next Tuesday and we see him again in another news conference. You know what I mean? Because the players are going to start going to class. And so it's just going to be it's a different mindset when you get to game week and you get to just kind of getting back into the swing of thing. Right now, it is football from the time they wake up in the morning and to the time they go to bed at night. And it's exhausting, right? And I'm experiencing it as a dad from the D2 level, let alone at the Notre Dame level. You know what I mean? So it's exhausting. It is.
Somebody mentioned the other day, I can't remember if it was Freeman or Denbrock. I think it was Freeman, something about, within the, NCAA allotted time that they have and that kind of stuff. Now, remember, there is more time during camp because they're not in class yet. So you don't have the same restrictions.
Right.
Once class starts, the restrictions get different during the week. So there is a lot more open time. I mean, that's why guys like Will Pauling were able to work their way into the Goog at 5:30 in the morning and whatever it was
100%
over there.
It's literally, since there's no classes, it's literally all day. I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm just going off the schedule that I see that my kid's going through. I mean, it's weights, it's meetings, it's walkthroughs, it's more meetings, it is another meeting, and then practice, and then more meetings, and then you go to bed. Like, that's the day. You know what I mean? Like, it is all football all the time, and it's amazing that they can get that much done in one day. So
Adam says $6 million a year. He's not feeling sorry for Coach Free. Well,
no one said we're feeling sorry for him.
No one said it feeling sorry, but he's earning his money, right?
Yes, he is.
Isn't this why he's getting the $6 million a year, making these kind of calls to be the head coach of the team, to get him to national championship games, to win national championship games?
100%.
I'd say he's earning his money right now.
Absolutely. And believe me, we're not feeling sorry for him. We are just saying that it's a lot, right? I mean, and that's why he looked maybe a little bit, he wasn't his normal bubbly self, you know what I mean, at the press conference. That's all. Nobody feels sorry for him. That's his job, and he loves it, and we love having him there. It's just, it's a lot. There's just a lot going on right now.
CJ Carr, Notre Dame starting quarterback. Notre Dame made the announcement today. We're going to continue talking about it after we take a timeout with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers, and we'll be back with more. We've got some more comments for Marcus Freeman, Mike Denbrock, Gino Guidugli as well on the way.
We continue Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Big news of the day. CJ Carr named Notre Dame's starting quarterback along with Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers as we continue the conversation talking about the big news today. We've got some comments in the good old YouTube chat. Carlos Garza says, with this decision, does that get rid of any and all BKPTSD?
Oh, you can't get rid of that completely until I would say they win a national championship. Until then, it will always be there.
Lingers a little bit.
Yeah.
Daniel says he's excited that Notre Dame finally has a quarterback who can push the ball down the field. Like when you look at this, what do you think it came down to, Vince?
The decision?
Yeah.
You know what?
CJ Carr.
From what I could tell, I would say it came down to what the offense looks like under each guy. Are they, who's pushing the ball down the field a little better? Who's got, the propensity for big plays? Who's turning the ball over? All of those things. I think it was a multifaceted decision, to be perfectly honest with you, which is why it took as long as it did. I think both guys had electrifying plays. I think, Kenny made some plays with his legs. I think he made plays with his arm. And I think the same thing about CJ, to be perfectly honest with you. And so I think there were days where everybody was on the CJ train, and I think there were days where everybody was on the Kenny train.
Yeah,
I do think it went back and forth. I really, really do. At the end of the day, once you compile everything, I think CJ was probably a little bit ahead of Kenny, and I also think that CJ went into the fall a little bit ahead of Kenny, and I think Kenny probably would have had to do a little bit more, maybe to jump over. And maybe he wasn't able to just get that little bit extra. But I do think it went down to the wire because we both know.
It obviously went down to the wire.
We know that there were coaches on both sides, and there was some pretty serious discussion, and somebody had to give in a little bit in order to make a decision.
I think so as well.
I think it's very interesting as to who gave in a little bit, at least my perceived as to who gave in. But at the end of the day, it is Marcus Freeman's decision. He's the head coach. But I absolutely think he took the opinions of everybody that was involved.
It's interesting that you said that. You led me right into this next cut. We played it yesterday, but I thought it was worth playing again today about who the decision ultimately came down to.
In a lot of decisions I make, I involve people. I believe we have the best staff in America. And so how do you not take some of their opinions into account? Like we'll talk, and at the end of the day, I have to make a decision, and it will be my decision. Right? I'm not passing this along on anybody else. I have to make a decision, but I will take into account like I do all my decisions, the coaches, and then we'll tell the players, and we'll move forward.
They have obviously now told the players. That was Sunday, Marcus Freeman's press conference. We touched on this yesterday, Vince. Some people kind of took issue with the fact that a coach with a defensive background should be the one to call this shot. I mean, you've been a head coach at different levels. Like Marcus Freeman is sitting there saying, I'm the one who's got to make the call on this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it does come down.
That check that he's making that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it does come down to the head coach. But I think a good head coach isn't making unilateral decisions when it comes to this stuff. And I really believe Mike Denbrock had a huge say. I think Gino Guidugli had a huge say.
Yep.
I think he probably talked to the defensive coaches too about what they saw when they were going up against, both Kenny and CJ. So I do think that this was a group decision. I really do think that. And I still think walking out of that room, it was not 100% as far as, everybody's with CJ. I really don't think that. But I think it was everybody agreed, okay, we're going to make this decision and move forward as a team. I do think that, because there is a difference, right? There's a difference.
And this was very close. Again, like the head coach, you take the input, but he still has to make the call. So he can sit there and
and talk with Mike Denbrock. They've got a great relationship, obviously, and they can go back and forth on some different things. Gino Guidugli as well, part of that mix, like he has to make the call, though, because he is the head coach. At the end of the day, the head coach is responsible for everything. If things go wrong with this or with anything else, it's the head coach who's going to get the blame for it, not the offensive coordinator, not the quarterback coach. Like, it's the head coach who that's just the way it goes. As you said, heavy is the head that wears the crown. It's his job to make the tough decisions. The assistants give their input, but once the decision is made, like, it's the assistant's job to then do their job with whatever the personnel that they're given. That's, that's just the way it works, No one in the YouTube chat says, I still say this was done weeks ago. I disagree with that. And based on everything that we've seen and heard, Kenny Minchie made a true contest out of this because as Vince said, I do think that CJ Carr was the front runner coming out of the spring. And I do think he was the front runner coming into the fall, but Kenny Minchie, to his credit, made this a really tough choice for Marcus Freeman and the staff. And again, the defense played a part in that as well, because there were turnovers. Like, we saw that on day one. We saw the interceptions, and CJ Carr had more of them. And it's, those weren't the only interceptions that he threw, day one, that those weren't the only interceptions that he threw. There were more. And I think that if there was some pause, that was a big factor in it, in terms of, Marcus Freeman has talked about it. Mike Denbrock is talking about it consistency, who takes care of the ball better. And so I think that if there was any pause on CJ Carr, it's because of some of those things that they saw during camp.
Well, and it's funny because, look, we saw video from Sunday. Both guys were working with the ones. If you knew weeks ago who your starting quarterback is, why would you waste your time having another guy work with the ones? You wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't push it all the way, because again, if this was really decided weeks ago, this is the first quarterback competition that Notre Dame has had that has gone to this point. Most of them, especially all of them under Marcus Freeman, have been declared within the first week of camp before today.
Yep.
And even under Brian Kelly, there were some times where it was done relatively quickly. This was not that. It went right down to the wire, and you're not going to play the game. You're not going to keep it. If there was a clear winner, you just name that guy and you get on with it. And that guy is getting more reps, more snaps, over the course of camp. Because again, both of these guys, neither one of them has a career start, so both of them need as many snaps as they can get. So you weren't going to waste those snaps just to give it, some lip service, saying this is a competition that's still going on. You weren't trying to save anybody's feelings. This is the whole process is about what's best for the team. And they felt that it needed to go on as long as it did, because there wasn't a clear guy at the top until today.
Yeah, it was a legitimate competition the entire way through. And there were people, as late as last night, that were very much Kenny should be the starter. And there were guys that CJ, it was literally, it came down to the final thing. And so I will always believe that it was a competition. I will always believe, that it went down to the wire. And I will always believe that there were coaches on both sides, and they compromised. There was some compromise that went down when they finally decided to make this decision. Now, I do believe the decision needed to be made right about now, right? Because of Miami prep and all of those different things. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But I think they probably pulled everybody into the room, everybody meaning the coaches, and they're like, okay, guys, we're not leaving this room until we make a decision.
We're going to figure this out.
Like pound the table and tell me why you think what you think. And then I, Marcus Freeman, will make a decision. I really do think that's the way it went down, man. And I wasn't in the room, obviously. I didn't talk to anybody in the room. But just the way things have gone throughout this entire fall camp, I think that's kind of how it went down. Now, maybe it wasn't that dramatic, you know what I mean? But I do think that that's kind of how it went. Like, hey, state your case. I need to have all of the data in front of me. State your case so that I can make an informed decision for the betterment of our football team.
Yeah. Steven in the YouTube chat says this is not anything like the quarterback competitions of the past, like Pine and Buckner. We had two great players battling. I agree with that. And again, that's why it went so long, because you had Pine, Buckner. Buckner was clearly the more talented of the two quarterbacks and had more experience at that point. Then you had Hartman the next year, and you had Riley Leonard the year after that. You had obvious guys, and in this case, you had two really talented guys with very little experience between them, who battled it out until the end. Joe asks, so is it CJ with a short leash? What do you think about that?
I do not think it'll be a short leash. I think they've made their decision and they're going to ride with him. They made that pretty clear last year, as somebody said in the chat with Riley Leonard. He didn't play well the first few games, right? And he got injured at the beginning of the Northern Illinois game, and they still didn't pull him. And I do think that this will be the same situation. I don't think you can't send a first-time starter into a game on the road
over his shoulder from day one.
You can't do that. You have to tell him, like, look, man, you can go out and throw a couple picks. You can make some mistakes. We're still going to ride with you. He's got to have that confidence level, because he can't be looking over his shoulder at Kenny Minchie the entire game. Like, you just can't do that. That's not how you play good football. And so I don't think that will be the case.
Our old friend, nemesis, whatever you want to refer to him, whichever perspective you had. He said some people said the other guy is better than CJ. Yeah, that's because there wasn't a complete 100% consensus. They went to this point in training camp because the competition was close. If there had been one guy clearly ahead a week ago, I'm 100% confident he would have been crowned a week ago, and it wouldn't have taken this long. So that's, it's the way it goes. There's a lot of competitions that come out of training camp that are very close. They can go different directions, but I agree with you on what you're saying. Whoever the winner of this was, a short leash was not going to be the recipe for success for either one of them, because they're young, they're inexperienced, they're both really talented, but at the end of the day, they are inexperienced, and you can't send them on the field to have them looking over their shoulder. Speaking of which, Mike Denbrock asked about the prospects of a quarterback rotation at the press conference Sunday, because this thing has been so close.
I think more than anything, I think we want to have some continuity to what we're doing. We want to have some consistency to what we're doing. I think there's strengths and weaknesses of both the players that are in competition together. We'll play to those and make sure that we are designing a plan to attack defenses that take advantage of those strengths and the people that they have around them. So more continuity and consistency with our approach as a staff and the approach of the offensive unit overall.
No rotation, and I think we can agree on that would not be the way to go. And going back to what we were just talking about, not having a short leash for CJ Carr. Do you think, though, that there's a good chance we still see some kind of Kenny Minchie package, or would you go all in on CJ all the way, from the start? Like, would you even think about some kind of Kenny Minchie package the first couple games of the season?
I wouldn't. I don't think that you can go through the season trying to make Kenny happy so that he sticks around. I think you talk to him, and he's a great kid, and he's going to do his best to be QB2 and be ready to go at a moment's notice. He's not Riley Leonard running the football. I don't know. Is he more athletic when it comes to running the ball than CJ? Yes, but I don't know that it's enough to make it worthwhile to have a separate package. I don't know that you gain as much as people out there seem to think that you gain. I would be all in with CJ, and I think he could get the job done, especially with the two guys that he would either have on both of his sides or one behind. The running game for Notre Dame is really, really good, and I think CJ can carry the ball if he needs to. So I don't think it helps you as much as some people think it helps you.
No, I don't either. Especially, again, you've made a decision. I don't think you need to be, any kind of throwing a second quarterback on the field at this point, because I think all you do is open yourself up, open the quarterback up, to a completely different set of circumstances. And our friend Penn State Sports Talk is continuing to stir it up.
Yeah.
Cues.
He's got his own issues with his head coach. He doesn't have to worry about Notre Dame's.
Good point. I tell you what, I'm going to save the next comment. If you've got any actual questions in the YouTube chat, and you're not named Penn State Sports Talk, feel free to submit them and we'll address them when we come back after we take a timeout with Fitz Dario. I'm Sean Steyer. CJ Carr is Notre Dame starting quarterback, and we'll keep talking about that coming up next. Got a few more minutes here, winding down the first hour of the show with the news that C.J. Carr has been named Notre Dame's starting quarterback. The Fighting Irish, of course, opened the season 12 days from today at Miami. And here is Notre Dame offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock talking about the challenge of going on the road into Miami to face the Hurricanes for the opener for whoever the starting quarterback would be.
Everybody knows that and I know you do, but no matter who we name the quarterback, it's no easy task going down to Miami and playing them in a season opener. So some of those things obviously only happen in situations in the speed of the game, and those things only happen in game situations. So no matter who the starter is, there will be a learning curve involved in all of this. But we're confident that we've got two guys who can compete at a very high level and do a really, really good job.
So there's Mike Denbrock. And, I will at least entertain at Penn State Sports Talk in the YouTube chat, was asking, he was saying, hey, what if Notre Dame's down 14-0? Would he give C.J. Carr the hook? And he followed that up by saying there's no evidence of what Marcus Freeman would do down 14-0 with a young quarterback who was just in a battle. No, there's no evidence of it. But as others have pointed out, even after a loss to NIU, they stuck with Riley Leonard and they let it ride until they got things figured out. What do you think about this hypothetical, Vince?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of different ways you can get to down 14-0. Is it a kick return? Is it a pick six? Did he throw 2 pick sixes? And that's why they're down 14-0? Okay, well, maybe we have a conversation about a change, right? If he just is that putrid at that moment, right? Is it, does Jeremiah Love fumble and they return it for a touch? Like, there's a million different ways to go down 14-0. I just really would be surprised if they pulled the rug out from under C.J. Carr that quickly. I just don't see that being the case because of what we talked about before. That would crush the confidence of this kid. Are you okay? So you bring in Kenny Minchie to win the game, and then do you stick with Kenny, or do you go back to CJ? Like, what's the end game here? Like, so you gave him a half of football, and that's it. That's just Notre Dame career. Like that, I have an issue with that, right? So, how did you get to 14-0? Number one. And I just believe that Marcus Freeman is going to give him a much longer rope than that.
No, exactly. Pulling, giving a guy the hook, and again, this is a complete hypothetical, but you're absolutely right. It's like, how did those things happen? Is it the first quarter and a couple fluke plays happened? I don't think that you're going, like, you literally just made this guy the starter. He made his first career start. Right. I just don't think you're going to pull the rug out from underneath him that early in his career.
And I will also say he's kind of coming back. The Penn State fan is saying, well, the fans wanted this and the fans wanted that with other schools when the starter was, struggling and all these other things. Okay, like the fans aren't the ones making the call. And if Marcus Freeman starts listening to fans, then he's not the right guy to be leading Notre Dame.
It's actually an interesting cut coming up in rapid fire that had to do with, like it was wrapped around a fan question, so you'll get Marcus Freeman's response to, well, what about, this from the fans? You'll get your answer to that. When coaches have rabbit ears like that, it is the coach is not usually in a good place once you start listening to all the noise from
the beginning of the end, frankly.
Yeah.
Unless something drastically changes, you know what I mean? Like you cannot operate like that. Even at the high school level, you cannot operate listening to fans. You can't. That's just not. That's not what you can do, man.
Like you and I have been baseball coaches at the high school level, where you can hear things from the stands because it's baseball, and they're right there. Like the minute you start reacting to what they're saying over there is the minute you're not focused on the right thing. And Marcus Freeman has a lot more people, obviously, on top of him and interested in what he's doing. What he is absorbing can't be what the fans are talking about. Now, obviously, he has to interact with alumni and do all those kind of things. That's part of the job and part of why he makes the big bucks as well. But his focus, he has shown from day one, is in the right place. I think that's the last thing that he's going to be concerned with.
the coach before me, when I was head coach, changed his team's dugout because of where the fans were sitting on this like grassy berm over by the third baseline. So he changed the dugout so that he wouldn't have to stand next to the fans.
Right next to that.
Chirping in
chirping
his ear.
at him all the time.
Yeah. It was like, oh, well, that wasn't going to last. He's already listening, man.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple. Sean in the YouTube chat, great name, by the way, says, when will we hear from Marcus Freeman again? 1 week from today.
Yes.
As we know, for the last few years, Marcus Freeman's weekly press conferences leading up to a game are usually on Mondays. But because Notre Dame and Miami is a Sunday game, they have shifted their game week schedule up a day. So all their media stuff is going to be a day behind when it usually is. So we will hear from Marcus Freeman. His press conference will be at 12:30 p.m. 1 week from today. And then he usually does a Zoom call with the media on Thursdays. And that call is going to be on Friday next week. Again, because of the fact that the game is on Sunday, the 31st, instead of a Saturday. So Marcus Freeman's next press conference will be 1 week from today. And we'll get a chance to ask him, okay, why CJ Carr and whatever else. There's some other interesting things as well. I think probably the next two biggest questions are who's going to be the right guard,
yes,
and who's going to play safety,
yes,
next to Adon Schuler. One of those things will definitely, I think, will we hear some of that? I can't remember. I put, like I said, I put two different shows together, so I'm trying to remember what I've got coming up in Rapid Fire. I tell you what, there will definitely be more quarterback talk in Rapid Fire, and there will definitely be a comment from Mike Denbrock about Elijah Burris, and there will definitely be a Marcus Freeman comment about some young guys in the secondary. How about that?
There's also a question about Penn State, so a certain someone should stick around.
Is there? Ooh, man, juicy. That's all coming up. Second hour, Rapid Fire on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We are back. It is hour 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers. He's Vince D'Addario. The news of the day is that C.J. Carr has been named Notre Dame's starting quarterback after a training camp battle with Kenny Minchey that waged on for 2.5 weeks. And Vince, it is rapid fire time right now.
Helps if I unmute myself. Let's go, baby.
Let's do it. So, fill in the blank. It's blanked at ESPN's Emmanuel Acho says he's not worried about Notre Dame breaking in a new quarterback this season because the defense and running game can carry the load for the Irish.
It's questionably well thought out. I do. I mean, look, there is some.
Is that what you?
There's some truth to what he is saying, right? That Notre Dame can be a good to very good football team, just leaning on the run game and the defense, no doubt about it. And as we have said for years and years and years, Brian, wow, Sean,
hello,
I know, right?
Nice
Brian and I have talked about this a bunch, and I know you and I have talked about this a bunch. Is that look, Notre Dame's had great defenses before, elite defenses before, and they've had good running games before, and they've had them at the same time, but they've never had those two things and an elite quarterback to get them over the hump to a national championship. That's why he's correct that they can, that he's not worried about it. Notre Dame can still win 10 games, whatever bar he has set, he's
right.
Absolutely correct.
Right.
But if they want to win a national championship, it's about getting that elite quarterback. I think CJ Carr is that quarterback. You pair him with these two things, you have the recipe for a really, really good season.
And it's why I don't expect, even though you have a quarterback who can push the ball downfield, and he's going to have to show that he can, complete passes downfield and be effective in certain elements of the passing game. I don't expect Marcus Freeman to come out just winging it with CJ Carr, just like I wouldn't have expected him to come out winging it with Kenny Minchey in career start number 1, because you have arguably the most dynamic running back in the nation, and you've got a great 1A next to him as well, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. You've got a great offensive line, and as we said in the first hour of the show, I don't think that CJ Carr is going to face a better defense than what he faced all training camp long until December, when Notre Dame is in the college football playoff. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think that, like you said, it is very well thought out on Acho's part. You don't have to put the whole thing on the quarterback. You do have a couple of great running backs, a great offensive line, and what should be a great defense as well. So I think it's a really good formula for Notre Dame. Like that's why you can feel confident as Marcus Freeman and Mike Denbrock and Gino Guidugli in the fact that, hey, we've got a young, inexperienced guy, but we've got a lot around him. I wanted to kind of throw some of these questions from the mailbag and the YouTube chat up there because they pertain to the quarterback thing. John B. says, in your opinion, is a real quarterback competition between talented quarterbacks going to be the new normal at Notre Dame going forward?
Do I think there's going to be talented quarterbacks at Notre Dame? Yes. Do I think there's going to be a competition every year? No, I don't. Like, for example, CJ Carr is a true sophomore redshirt freshman, right? So he's got at least one more year, which would be 2026, to come back. I do not anticipate him having – I don't anticipate there being a quarterback competition going into 26. He's going to be the heir apparent, the incumbent, all of those different things. So I don't think there's going to be a quarterback competition every year, but I do think there is going to be competition when the job is open between talented quarterbacks. Yes.
Right. I think that was more the question. When there are quarterback competitions, yes, you're going to see talented quarterbacks like this. And, that's going to be much more the norm. And this is something Vince and I had, talked about when Brian Kelly left. It's been a while since we've talked about this, but there's not, obviously, when you look at the recruiting that they've got, you're not settling for some of the quarterbacks that ultimately they settled for that led to such disparity in the type of talent that they had in the quarterback room. It's going to look a lot different going forward. And when there are quarterback competitions, yes, you're going to see two really talented guys going head to head like this. And it's going to be nothing but good for Notre Dame. Andre says his biggest question has the offensive staff developed these quarterbacks to succeed? In the past, they had problems developing quarterbacks. And on a related note, Matt says, are you more confident in a young guy starting on Freeman than Kelly? Just feels like every player seems much more prepared at each position, easy to be confident. What do you think about those?
I do think that young guys are prepared to play at Notre Dame. I mean, they've been playing freshmen on the offensive line that come to play. They've been playing freshmen in the defensive secondary that come to play. Freshmen are here to play. And I do think that they are more comfortable. I think the development is at a different place. And I also think the recruiting is at a different place as well. And so the development of the quarterback position specifically has changed ever since Brian Kelly walked out the door. I mean, let's be honest. And I know people like to throw shade at Tommy Rees, but the second that Brian Kelly walked out the door is the second they started recruiting elite quarterbacks and getting them to commit to Notre Dame. You have to give him credit for that, even though he's not here anymore, right? So I do think that there has been a shift in the mindset as well, and they had to kind of cover that up with some transfers. But now guys are starting to develop and guys are starting to look. We watched Sam Hartman. We watched Riley Leonard. We watched Jack Cohn. Like, we saw all those guys in person. None of those guys throw the football like Kenny Minchie or CJ Carr. They just don't. They're not as a complete package as both of those guys, which is why it was an elite competition. So, and these guys are the guys that have been developed at Notre Dame.
Yeah, and in terms of what the past development of quarterbacks was here at Notre Dame, let's look. Marcus Freeman has had transfer portal quarterbacks the last 2 years. Before that, you had Tyler Buckner and Drew Pine, whom he inherited. And the previous head coach, Brian Kelly, interjected himself into everything regarding the quarterback much differently than Marcus Freeman is. Now, to credit where credit is due for Brian Kelly, that was obviously his background. So he felt like he had a certain level of expertise. Sure. But it was also like they were molded very specifically with the things that Brian Kelly was looking for. And I think that, if you go back deep into Brian Kelly, you never really saw, other than Ian Book maybe, and even you could probably, have a conversation about that. You never saw quarterbacks make huge leaps in development from the start of their career until the end of their career. I think that, that there's probably a case that Ian Book was really kind of the same quarterback that he was when he left, is when he was a year one. Now, when he came in that first career start at North Carolina, when Wimbush was injured, like, that was his first career start. The next year was where he made a leap. Now, you could see a leap in development there.
Agreed.
But it was a flat line after that.
He was, I mean, there's an argument to be made, and I know Brian has like all this stuff in his brain, which is amazing all by itself. But like, there's an argument to be made. Ian Book was at his best in 2018 when he took over, the starting job, like in week 4 or whatever. Like, he was the best he was ever at that point. And then he just won a bunch of games because why, Sean? They had really good defense and a really good running game.
There you go.
And that's what got them a bunch of wins, right? They didn't win any
success.
They didn't win any hardware doing that. You know what I mean? And so Ian Book is who Ian Book was. I mean, he's the all-time winningest, quarterback at Notre Dame. Cool, man. That he will never be able to, that'll always be him, and that's awesome, right? But he's still a 3-star quarterback who did what he needed to do to get those wins.
I mean, if you want to look at quarterback development and the offensive coordinator that you have right now. Now, the quarterback coach obviously is going to play into it as well. Different quarterback, but Mike Denbrock, obviously, at LSU, Jaden Daniels starts his career at Arizona State. Nothing special.
Yep.
Decent first year at LSU, and obviously skyrockets the next year. And look at the year that he had this past year in the NFL as he continued to elevate after that. That's who, that's who the offensive coordinator is now. And I know that he was here under Brian Kelly, but again, there were restraints on Mike Denbrock when Brian Kelly was here the first time. And he's a lot more autonomous now, one, because of some of the things that he has learned since then, in coming back to Notre Dame now, and 2, because Marcus Freeman, is just much more hands off. Again, he had his input with who was ultimately going to be the starting quarterback, but much more hands off in terms of obviously the actual development of those guys.
And that has been a maturation process for Marcus Freeman too. I mean, let's be honest, right? Like, I don't know that this decision is ultimately made maybe in his year 1 or maybe his year 2. Now he's in year 4. I think he has a better perspective of what it is to be a head coach and relying on his really good coordinator on the offensive side of the football to help make that decision. You know what I mean?
And who you can trust as well. And I'm not saying that there wasn't, trust before, but like he inherited, some guys. Not every choice was his with how he put together the first staff, obviously, So it looks a lot different now as he's gone on with each year. Everyone on the staff now is 100% guys who he, obviously, I guess the only one, Mike Mickens, was here. But again, they had a relationship going back to Cincinnati. So there was a great relationship there already. Okay, let's go back to Mike Denbrock. Here is what the offensive coordinator says about freshman wide receiver Elijah Burris.
Elijah is a freshman who is incredibly frustrating because from a skill level standpoint, he's elite. He understands football. He understands how to break people down in space. But I can't quite get him to learn and master the playbook quite yet, so I can't get him lined up enough as consistently as I need to him actually show the talent that he's got. So there's a lot of good there, a lot of good things, and he's going to be a really good football player for us.
A lot of good things. What'd you think about that comment about Elijah Burris there, Vince?
Well, it helps me with my prediction of him being an impact player potentially as a freshman because I think he might crack that rotation, Sean. I think that 6th spot is absolutely up for grabs, and I think he's got an opportunity to grab that spot. I think he's got a lot of intangibles. I think he is drinking through the fire hose a little bit when it comes to the playbook and things like that, and I think that was, kind of what Coach Denbrock was saying. But you can't deny the skills, and I don't think you can deny the football IQ as well. It comes by it naturally, obviously, right? But I don't think you can deny it. Yeah.
And but like, it's a little bit saying the quiet part out loud, like when he said that I think it took everybody a little bit off guard. It's like, hey, can we get him to learn the playbook a little bit? But there are still things that you can do with a guy like Elijah Burris with that talent, even if he doesn't know, 100% the playbook. Like Evan Sharpley used to tell me the stories about how when Golden Tate was a freshman and even, like into his sophomore year a little bit, Golden Tate, and look at what Golden Tate became, obviously, like he didn't know the playbook at that point. So what they would do, wherever, whatever sideline Notre Dame was on when Golden Tate would go out on the field, they would line him up closest to the Notre Dame sideline so that the coaching staff could yell to him what he was supposed to do from the sideline. So, like, there's a way to get talent on the field, like you don't have to know 100% everything. The guy has obviously got a lot of talent. You just got to figure out how to work with it. And I agree. Like, he's going to see the field this year.
Well, and you can do that with your 6th receiver. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of get away with certain things, putting him on the field and some smaller packages and things of that nature. Like I still think it's going to be the top 4 guys mainly, and then you're going to see the next 2 guys kind of come, like that type of thing. And so you can do that. And there's ways. Like, look, man, when we were in high school, we were coaching high school ball, and I realized it's 2 different things. But if you have an athlete who's just going to out athlete people, you teach him what he needs to know. And you find ways to make sure, like there was a team that we played against who just had a bunch of athletes on the field. They had like little wrist things, and I could see on the wrist things that had like the routes like written out like in picture form on the thing, and they were still going out there and making plays. Like you figure out how to make it work, Sean.
Yes, that's what you do. That's what you do. Now, again, difference between the current coaching staff and the previous coaching staff, because that was always an eliminator for the previous.
That was the roadblock, man.
Like you have to be willing to be open and be flexible and recognize talent and figure out a way to get it on the field. Doesn't have to be 100% of the time. You have to find a way to get it on the field and let that talent work to your advantage rather than just standing on the sideline and saying, well, till you know the entire playbook, you're not seeing the field. That's, doesn't work.
One word, coaching. Like that's coaching. You get your best players on the field.
Coach them up, coach.
Man.
Coach them up. Figure out a way to coach them up.
Like that's your job. That I think Brian told a story one time where his head coach kind of came into the room and he's like, you need to get so-and-so on the field. Well, he doesn't know the play. Figure it out. Get him on the field. Like that's what you do. You coach him up to make plays.
Yes, exactly. Marcus Freeman was asked at his press conference about what players fans might not be talking about have taken a big leap during camp. Here's the response.
I don't know what the fans talk about. I don't. I think, we have 3 freshmen that are going to, doing a good job at corner with Dallas and Mark and Cree. I think they're going to do an excellent job. Ty Washington just trying to tight end. I can go on. I can really list a lot of people that our fans don't know that I expect to do a good job for us this season.
All right. So, we talked about this in the first hour of the show. The head coach not paying attention to what the fans are clamoring for. Obviously.
Great question. Just a great question.
Yes.
Like you could have asked gotten the same answer, but asked the question in like a different way. Like, hey, coach, who are some guys that fans are going to be excited to learn about as the season goes on or something along those lines, It's like, I don't know who the fans are talking about. Like, come on, man.
More importantly, the first 3 names off his, on his lips, Dallas Golden, Mark Zachary, Cree Thomas, just to give full names for everyone who might not be up on these guys. And there's a reason you might not be up on these guys, because the 3 first guys, Ty Washington, the Arkansas tight end transfer, was the 4th guy. But Dallas Golden, Mark Zachary, Cree Thomas, all freshmen defensive backs. What does that say to you that those were the first names off Marcus Freeman's lips?
I mean, those guys have been running with the 2s pretty much all camp, which we all kind of looked at each other like, huh. It is a very young room, but it is an uber talented room. Uber talented. And somebody in the chat earlier, because we were talking about how, CJ is going to be going up against the scout team and things now. And they're like, well, the scout team's still going to be super talented. And they named off those 3 guys. And it was like, yeah, those guys aren't going to be on the scout team. Like they're going to be rotating.
Those are not scout team guys. No. Those are 2 deep guys.
That's right.
That's why they have the depth that they have in the secondary.
100%. Yeah. But no, it's exciting. And it just reinforces the fact that they should be giving Mike Mickens a raise every single year. Because he just keeps bringing these guys in and they just keep reloading in the defensive secondary every single year, man. Like they're scary good.
Because now it's recruiting and development.
Yes.
Like there was a mix of a little bit, but you were still trying to get your numbers up. And now look at what Benjamin Morrison did as a true freshman a few years ago, and what that led to for him. And then obviously look at what Leonard Moore did when he was thrown into the fire as a true freshman last year. And now camp is barely over with, and Marcus Freeman is talking about these 3 freshmen. They're going to contribute. They're going to play. And like, it's more exciting than ever to think about this defense. I just, I'll say it over and over and over again. Carr's not going to see a better defense than the one he just faced.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It's going to feel like guys are running wide open is what it's going to feel like there for a while. Yep. So, but that's exciting. I'm here for it. And like I said, I'm excited that they can actually get focused on what they need to do now for Miami.
We'll take a timeout, and then we'll come back. We've got a few minutes to go. We will wrap up Rapid Fire and tonight's show. We are done at 6:40 tonight because we've got a little South Bend Cubs baseball. So we've got more, including that question that Vince was talking about that our friend from Penn State might be interested in. We'll do that and more when we return. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire. Winding down Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire, along with Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers. Before I forget, special guest on tomorrow's show, Aaron Taylor, Notre Dame great, currently of CBS Sports, will join me at the start of the show tomorrow. So looking forward to that, getting some of his thoughts.
You may have to have him do his Lou Holtz impression.
Oh, that's a good call.
Because he does do a very good one. Very good.
I've heard it before.
Yes. I don't know. Just I'm sure you got your questions ready to roll, but I just figured I'd throw that out there.
I don't have them yet, but I've got some kicking around in my head. Did you know that he actually was one of the founders of the Joe Moore Award?
Yes, I did know that. Actually.
I did not know that until I started researching him. So we're going to have to talk about that a little bit. We're going to have to talk about Joe and the whole kit and caboodle.
And this year's offensive line.
Obviously.
I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe he founded it because he was coached by Joe Moore and wanted to honor his late coach and all of those things. And I mean, I love the fact that, I know we're getting off track here, but I love the fact that the Joe Moore Award is the largest trophy of any trophy ever out there known to man, because it's an offensive line trophy.
It's an entire offensive line.
I mean, the thing is massive. It's not one you can really sneak into the facility as a surprise as to who's going to win it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the thing is massive.
I wonder if you're on the line, obviously the school gets the trophy, but I wonder, do you get a miniaturized version if you're one of the guys on the line? I wonder how that works.
That's a good question. I would want one if I was one, but that's a great question.
Right. Fill in the blank, Vince. Speaking of questions, it's blank that Penn State, Maryland, and Indiana are all listed on On3's list of the easiest non-conference schedules in the nation this season.
Oh, typical. It's typical. That's my fill in the blank. It's typical. I mean, Penn State has kind of always done this, and so that's not overly surprising, it feels like. But then I use canceling games to make sure that they're easier.
Last 2 years, just dumbed it down completely.
It's just, I mean, because the Big Ten schedule's so hard, so they have to dumb it down. They're
except that it's not that hard.
I know it's ridiculous.
You get a soft Big Ten schedule, and you dumb down your non-conference schedule with all these FCS teams on there.
Unbelievable. I mean, the FCS teams are going to get a paycheck, obviously, out of the deal, and it's great for them and all of those kinds of things. But come on, man, at least challenge yourself a little bit.
Try. But there's, Maryland you can forgive because what's Maryland football? But come on, Penn State and Indiana were both in the playoff last year.
And you used to be able to say that about IU, right? But, the whole we'll play anybody anywhere kind of thing kind of goes out the window when you're canceling games and scheduling these.
Yes.
So if you want to be considered a big boy, in Big Ten football and nationally, you better put a big boy schedule together.
I think so as well.
I think and that goes to Penn State fans and athletic director as well. Come on, guys, you're supposed to be this top team in the country and all these other things, and you open up with Nevada, and Villanova. I think is their couple of their
Villanova,
games.
Florida International.
Come on, fellas. Come on.
Yeah. I think our Penn State friend left the chat. So.
I think he did too. It's okay though.
Okay, Vince, we're getting close to the season. There's only so many of these that we can do. I want to guess the over-under, the season over-under win total for Vanderbilt this season.
This should be
dizzy. I don't know.
Oh boy. I can kind of take it from here if you want to, get yourself together there, buddy.
That's all right. I think I moved my head too soon or too quickly or something.
Well, Vanderbilt does start off with the juggernaut of Charleston Southern.
Very tough. Very tough. Charleston Southern. Yep.
But at least their non-conference game is Virginia Tech. So
challenge themselves a little bit.
They're at least, with that game alone, they have made their schedule tougher than both IU and Penn State.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, their conference schedule is legit now.
Yes, it is.
Because then they go they're at South Carolina, another non-conference game back-to-back, Georgia State and Utah State, totally manageable.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're at Alabama, they host LSU, they host Missouri, they're at Texas, host Auburn, host Kentucky, at Tennessee to close the season.
Their road schedule, Sean, is ridiculous, in my opinion. I mean, they have to go to South Carolina, who thought that they should have been in the playoff, right? Because they had such that great stretch down the way last year. Then they have to go to Alabama. They have to go to Texas, and they have to go to Tennessee. Wow. The SEC schedule makers are not doing them any favors when it comes to the road schedule.
No, not at all.
Man.
That's a tough schedule. Okay, so let's guess what FanDuel has as their over-under for the season. I've got my ballpark that I'm looking at right now. I think it's going to be pretty tough for Vandy to duplicate what they did last year.
They're going to be I just don't see. Now, I would have said this last year as well. So to their credit, I would have said this last year. I don't see them getting to 500. And so I'm waffling around the 4.5 area, I think. And, if they get on a little bit of a run, is it possible for them to get to 5, maybe 6, maybe? But I'm sticking, I think, at 4.5.
I think I'm going to be a little bit more generous and go 5.5.
Okay.
But again, like when you look at that schedule, it could be a struggle just to get to 5 wins. Now, Tennessee has lost a lot from last year's team.
Yeah. They're one of the big question marks in the country as to what they're going to be able to put together here.
I think so too. Kentucky,
Kentucky's winnable.
Yeah, Kentucky's winnable. Auburn's winnable. Missouri should at least be a toss-up.
Sure.
I think I'm going to go 5.5 is that's what it's going to be my guess.
I love Clark Lee. I really do. And I know he's an alum there, and that's why he took the job. I wish he would have taken a job where might have had more of an opportunity to put something together, because it's always going to be Vanderbilt, right?
Yep.
And I love what they were able to do last year. And I, it's just not necessarily a repeatable formula necessarily. I think Diego Pavia is probably going to get a little bit of a comeuppance this season. But this is one, I'm going to stick at 4.5, but this is one where I would not be upset if I was wrong.
Okay.
At all.
You're going to stick at 4.5. I'm going to go with 5.5.
All right.
I think it's got to be one of those two numbers. I can't be at, I don't even think, I think 6.5 is too high.
Yeah,
so,
I do too.
Again, we're guessing the FanDuel over-under season win total for the Vanderbilt Commodore football team. Vince is 4.5. I'm 5.5. And the number is, you got it, 4.5.
Yeah, baby.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
I needed a win.
You're usually on the high end too.
I know. Like I said, I got a lot of respect for what they're doing down in Vanderbilt. There's a former Penn player, Matt Bayless's kid, is down there.
Oh, that's right.
He's a walk-on running back, I do believe. And so I've got a lot of love for Vanderbilt, but man, is that a tough schedule. And when you lose games like that, if they end up losing those games on the road and things like that, it does make it harder to bounce back. You know what I mean? And win some games that you might have a 50-50 shot of winning, and those home games and things like that. It's just tough.
And the thing about Clark Lee, just like what James Franklin did, like James Franklin went down there, won for a little bit at Vanderbilt, and he parlayed it into a place where he could actually go and win some games at a place like Penn State. If Clark Lee puts together back-to-back winning seasons last year and this year, especially with that schedule that we just talked about, he needs to go someplace else.
I know,
where he can actually win, but I don't know that he will, because he loves Vanderbilt so much, because it's his alma mater.
Yeah, I don't think he will. I think he'll have every opportunity to do so. He probably, let's be honest, Sean, after last year, he could have gone someplace else.
Yeah.
I don't know what phone calls his agent was, taking and things of that nature. But after he did what he did last year and got Vanderbilt to win some of those games, how is he not getting offers to go someplace bigger? Has to.
If they have a winning record again this year, just a winning, even 500, I think is a success against, again, their over under is 4.5. So if they go 6-6, that's a good season.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll wrap it up with that. Again, the news of the day, C.J. Carr named Notre Dame starting quarterback today. 12 days to go until the season opener when the Fighting Irish head to Miami. And, of course, all games are right here on sportsradio.com. WSBT. We will take a time out and roll you right into some South Bend Cubs baseball tonight. Vince, enjoyed it as always. I will talk to you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.